Hi there and welcome to Tech Life, a channel where I aim to review everything from selfie sticks to laptops to IDs for coding, video editing, software for producing thumbnails, essentially anything tech related. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing. If you have anything that you think I should review, please let me know in the comments and I'll do my best to review that product. This video is going to kick off a series of videos on learning to program in JavaScript. These videos are going to be aimed at complete beginners, people who have never programmed before, or people who have a basic understanding of programming in another language. So on that note, let's get started. Firstly, we need to clear up some misconceptions. JavaScript is not the same as Java, the programming language. Java is um, a language similar to C# that is extremely powerful and is mainly used to program the back end of applications. Java's commands and syntax are totally different to JavaScript, and the two languages are totally unrelated. JavaScript is extremely powerful in itself, but was mostly used to write code for the front end of applications. So we could build feature-rich, complex, interactive websites. JavaScript was originally designed to only run in browsers. Most, if not all, popular browsers have a built-in JavaScript engine that enables JavaScript code to run. The JavaScript engine for Firefox is called SpiderMonkey, and the one in Chrome is simply called V8. In 2009, a chap called Ryan Dahl took the open source JavaScript engine from Chrome, the V8 engine, and embedded it into a C++ program. And he called that program Node. Node, therefore, is a C++ program that includes the JavaScript engine from Chrome, which simply means that JavaScript can now be run outside of a web browser using Node. Using Node, we can build backend and mobile apps now. Nowadays, JavaScript has been used to build web and mobile apps, real-time networking apps, and even games. All modern browsers have built-in JavaScript engines, which means that they can execute any JavaScript code we write. So let's open up a browser. Okay, let's open up a web browser and have a look at some JavaScript in action. Um, all modern browsers have something called DevTools, and Chrome is no different. In order to access those tools, you can access them in a number of different ways. You can either do a right click and um, click on the inspect submenu here, and the DevTools are opened on the right hand side over here, or I tend to just hit the F12 key, and then you have the DevTools open on the right again. So once the DevTool window is visible, the tab that we're interested in is this tab here called Console, and within this Console tab, we can actually type JavaScript code. So let's create our first JavaScript code. All I'm going to do with this is just output something simple, a simple message to the console window. In order to do that, I use the keyword console, and I'm going to say console.log, open and close parentheses, open close single quotes. So this is my first JavaScript code, and as with many programming languages, we end this line of code with the semicolon, and if we hit return, it just outputs the string that we've typed in the single quotes back to the console. So this is my first JavaScript code. Okay, uh, just a few points to note here. I'm going to clear the console window. So JavaScript, like many other programming languages, is case sensitive. So if I typed in console with a capital C, it would have thrown an error. So if I did capital C console dot log, open and close parentheses, open and close single quotes, this will throw an error. And so it throws an uncaught reference error. It doesn't know what console with a capital C is. It can't find that object. In order to clear this console window, I do a right click, clear console. So a small c, and as I start typing, the DevTools is clever enough to give us suggestions. So if I type a con, I can use the up and down arrow keys to navigate to the keyword that I require. And if I hit the tab key here, it saves me having to type the rest of the word in. And then if I hit dot, then we can see all the methods associated with console, and the one we were using was log. So again, I can use the down arrow key to highlight the log method, and then again, if I hit the tab key, it saves me having to type log and then open and close parentheses. Lamborghinis are the best. So that is JavaScript using the dev tools within Chrome in this case, but dev tools can be found in Edge and also Firefox, and I'm sure some of the other browsers such as Brave. Okay. Clear the console again. We can also do things like you can use the alert, and again, I've typed a capital A, and had I gone ahead and used a capital A, I would have got an error because alert actually starts with a lowercase. I can do something like alert, and then we can enter a string here. Lamborghinis are the best. Again, semicolon at the end of the line, and this time we actually get a pop-up with the string in there. Lamborghinis are the best, and we have an OK button to get rid of that pop-up. So that is JavaScript in action, but obviously we wouldn't use the dev tools in the console window to write real world JavaScript applications. We would use a code editor of some description. You can use Visual Studio, but there are other really good code editors out there, such as Visual Studio Code, another one called Sublime Text, and there's another one called Atom, which are really good. All three of those are really cool. I tend to use Visual Studio, but for beginners, I would recommend that you actually download Visual Studio Code. You can do so by navigating to the following URL. So it's code.visualstudio.com, and let me just get rid of the dev tools. So download Visual Studio Code for the Mac, Linux, and Windows. Click that first result, and then you have the option to download whichever you want. Obviously, I'm running Windows, so I'm gonna install one of these. I click in download, and the download begins there, and then click in the exe and we'll kick off the install. You probably want to read some of this, and if you accept, click on I accept the agreement and click next. And here we get the option to decide where we're going to install this. I'm not going to install it in users. I am going to install it in VS Code. I want to put it there. And this is going to create a submenu, so we're okay with that. And select additional tasks, create a desktop icon. Yeah, why not? Register code as an editor for support. Yeah, why not? Add to path. Okay, cool. So next and install. So it'll take a few minutes to install that. Once that's installed, I'll get back to you. I'm going to stop the video recording for now. Okay, install was successful. It didn't take as long as I thought it would. On opening VS Code for the first time, you have the option to select the theme of your IDE. So people sometimes prefer a darker sort of background with lighter text, or quite often people prefer a lighter background to a darker text. I actually prefer a darker background with the contrasting text, but for these tutorials, I think it's going to be easier for you to view the code that I write if I use a light background. And so I'm going to use this light high contrast. The difference between light and modern. Okay, I actually prefer the light with the high contrast. And then okay, so we click on next for selection and code with extensions and click done. And then we have the option to actually start coding, and we can start by creating a new file, opening a file or opening a folder which might contain a file that we might have coded up before. And then you also have down here you would have a list of any recent files that you've opened, but obviously this is the first time we're using this, so there are no suggestions for recent files. The other thing we need to download and install is Node for these tutorials. So let's go ahead and get Node. And again, we can do that by going to nodejs.org, nodejs.org, and we can download Node from here, run JavaScript anywhere, nodejs. And this is the latest version, which is 20.12. Again, it downloads, in this case, it downloads at MSI, and that's gone into my downloads folder. Clicking that brings up the installer wizard. So setup wizard will install node.js on your computer. Click next. Accept the terms and conditions. Click next. Select a folder for where you want it installed. I'm gonna change this to work node. And clicking next will create that folder. Install core node.js runtime. I'm going to leave those as default. Clicking next. automatically install necessary tools. Note that this will also installed chocolate tea. The script will pop. No, let's not do that. Click next, install. And again, this will take a few minutes to install. And clicking finish will conclude that installation. Okay, so once Node is installed, the next thing we need to do is fire up Visual Studio Code, and we have to add an extension. So if we click on this extensions menu on the left hand side here, it allows us to add extensions to Visual Studio Code. The one we're interested in is called Live Server. So if you start typing live, the very first one here, this is the one we're interested in. And the reason we install this is this will allow us to, this will host any HTML pages that we create during this tutorial. This will take a second or two to install the extension to Visual Studio Code. Okay, I think that's done. We're going to create a new file. We're going to call this index.html. And I'm going to save this to, I'm going to save it to work, tech life, JavaScript. I'm going to put it here. So this is our very first HTML file that we created, and we need a HTML file in order to host our JavaScript code. I'm not going to talk too much about HTML tags and stuff like this, but we will need to know a little bit about HTML as we go along, because obviously JavaScript manipulates HTML code. But don't worry, I'll try to explain the tags and the code as I go along. In order to create a boilerplate piece of code within this HTML file, we type the exclamation mark and we hit the tab key, and it creates this simple 11 lines of code. So if we run this, the HTML page is blank because there's no code in there. Okay. And so we know this HTML file is working. All I did hit was create a tag, a header tag one, and I put some I put a string in between those two tags, and it simply displays this message. And so as mentioned before, we're going to use this HTML page to host our JavaScript code. In order to add JavaScript code to this page, we need to add a script element. So, and there's two places we could add this element. We could add it in the head section, which is just here in between this tag and this tag, or we could add it in the body section. So the body section starts here and ends here. It's best best practice to place the JavaScript code at the end of the body section. So just before the body section a tag closes off, to place your script here. And there are two main reasons for doing this. Firstly, the browser parses HTML code top down. So the browser will start executing code starting right at the top here. Line 1 will get executed, then 2, then 3 and 4, and all the way down. And therefore, if you have a lot of JavaScript code right at the top, for instance, if you had lines and lines of JavaScript code in the head section, and then it's likely that the browser will take some time to execute all of that JavaScript code before it actually starts to render um, the page using the HTML tags. So from a user experience point of view, you could be sitting there looking at a blank page, and you wouldn't know that the browser is churning through lots and lots of JavaScript lines of code before it actually gets to the HTML code, which invariably sits in the body. And then that the HTML code would render the page, and then you would actually see something on the page. So it's better to have the browser render all the HTML code and display something to the user, and then start to execute any JavaScript code. That's the first main reason. And the second reason, more often than not, the JavaScript code we place in the HTML page will be manipulating the actual HTML elements on the page. So by placing the JavaScript code at the end of the body tag, we'll be confident that all the elements have already been rendered onto the page, and then we can go ahead and use those elements. If you did it the other way around, you'd run your JavaScript code first, and then the elements would not have been. There's a good chance that the elements would not have been rendered, and then you could experience issues. So it's best to just place the JavaScript code pretty much right at the end of the body tag. So this is not my first page now. Okay, and so that's our HTML code, and then in order to place JavaScript code, we have to place the code within uh, another set of tags, and that tag is called script. Opening script tag and a closing script tag. And now we can place our JavaScript code within this. And again, I'm just going to do a simple console and .log. Open and close parentheses, open and close single quotes. And then we end this line with a semicolon. And we can run this. Okay, I don't know how to spell rock. Let's correct that first. Numbers rock. Let's try that again. Numbers rock. And then if we go and look at the console, which again is either F12 or right click inspect. I just tend to use F12. And if you go up to console, I can see, you should be able to see Lambo's Rock. Cool. So that is our first piece of JavaScript that has been hosted in a HTML page. Okay, quick recap on what we've done. We created a HTML page because we wanted to host some JavaScript code. We said that it's best to include this JavaScript code at the end of the body tag. And there's two reasons for that. This line of code is called a statement. All statements in JavaScript should be terminated with that semicolon. A statement of code is basically a statement performs some sort of action. In this case, this statement performed the action of displaying this string to the console. We can add comments to JavaScript code, and very similar to C#. In order to add a comment, we use the 2 forward slashes. This is a comment. JavaScript engine will ignore this. It will not execute this because it's just there for our purpose. We use comments in order to remind ourselves of why we might have written that code, or help any future devs who might come across our code to give them a fighting chance of understanding what we've done in terms of why we might have written that code. The lines of code that will get executed are the ones using these keywords, console.log. Okay, so I think that's it for part one of the beginner's JavaScript tutorial. A quick recap on what we discussed. We said that JavaScript is not related to Java. It's a very powerful language that was initially used to develop complex feature-rich websites. JavaScript traditionally ran within browsers until Node was created by Ryan Dahl. Using Node means we can run JavaScript code outside of a browser. We looked at a few different code editors that we can use in order to write JavaScript code. The one that I am using is a Visual Studio Code. As I say, you can use Visual Studio or any of the others we mentioned, Atom and Sublime. And finally, we wrote a few lines of code, which were probably our first JavaScript lines of code. And those lines of code were hosted within a HTML page. And it was a simple case of writing a string to the console log. I'm hoping to do a number of these beginners tutorials, so please do consider subscribing and hitting the bell icon so you don't miss the next one. Until then, thank you so much for watching.